Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited to welcome back Colin Plume onto my channel here. He's the president of Noble Gold Investments, and because he is a precious metals aficionado, I wanted to ask his opinion on a couple things. One of those being the possibility of our country soon going back on the gold standard and some recent legislation that might be making that happen. And I also wanted to ask him his opinion on the trade wars and how we best might be able to protect ourselves against any potential economic chaos that we might soon be going through. So check it out. All right. Well, thanks, Colin, for coming back on here. There's a lot of things I want to talk about today. I want to get your thoughts on the new HR 5404 bill, talking about actually instituting a gold standard. And I want to get your ideas on the trade war as well, because I think you could have some good perspectives on that. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, no, this bill, it's fascinating because if you read through the bill, it's short. And I actually recommend anyone to download it. And I'm going to make it available to people that contact us so they can read it. It's only about a page and a half of text. It basically just talks about what we've been talking about, that we need to go back on the gold standard. In summary, he says, if we believe the government's 2% inflation number, that means, every 30, 40 years, our money, the value of our purchasing power drops in half. And so by going back on the gold standard and limiting the amount of money that's out there to how much gold we have, that would make it possible for people that save money or people that want to buy bonds. It makes it possible for you and I to put money in a bank and have that money grow, as opposed to now. If you put money in the bank, not only do you make 0.25%, but you're really losing, 2%, because that's what the government says the inflation is. And even though the inflation is much higher, it's closer to 9 or 10%.
Right.
Going back on the gold standard would put us in a much better position. There's some other things in that bill too that we could discuss. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the gold standard? What do you think about it?
I mean, I think it would be a definite plus. Anything to get us off this baseless fiat currency system that we have, and the gold standard would definitely be a viable option.
Yeah.
To shift us onto. So what were your thoughts when you read that short, couple page bill that was introduced just, I think, 2 weeks ago now? It's pretty recent.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's written by Representative Mooney, Dartmouth graduate. Our Government Lies Exposed, which talks about inflation, talks about the debt that we're in, is written by a Dartmouth graduate, also an economist. So obviously the school of thought there is similar, that we need to get off the fiat money, as you mentioned, and move towards something that's backed, which would limit the amount of money that could be printed. It would make everyone's wages kind of hold value. That's the real problem with our wages today, is that the dollars are shrinking in value. So if you're not getting substantial raises every year, you can't keep up, and you can't continue to buy the goods that you need. At the end of the bill, they snuck in something that I thought was really interesting, is that it says after 30 days after we enact this bill, we also need to do an accounting of the gold that we have. Make that so, which is something that Ron Paul has been pushing for, is that we want to know, is there gold? How much gold's in Fort Knox? How much do we have? They've never done an actual physical audit since the 70s. So not only is it moving us back towards a gold standard, but also we get some kind of accounting of what we actually have, or if we actually have gold in Fort Knox. So I think it's a great bill. I'm definitely going to be reaching out to the representative and showing support. But I think it would help with a lot of our finances and get things under control, which that's really the nuts and bolts of it, is that our economy, our debt is out of control. They report 22 trillion. If you factor in unfunded liabilities like Medicare, Medicaid, and we talk about this in our ebook, it's actually closer to 107 trillion in debt. So you can only do that when you can just print money. You can't. It's not feasible on a gold standard. You can never be in that kind of debt. So I think it would help things out. And I think we're due for a correction. And I think that, precious metals, tangible investments that can't be manipulated like the dollar, are going to perform well when that happens.
So a couple questions on that note. A, how feasible do you think this bill is to being passed and put into action? And B, because you're more well versed on economics than I am, what would this actually do to our wages or the prices of various goods?
I think in terms of getting it passed, it really comes down to the public. If the public pushes their representatives to start going in this fashion, then it can absolutely happen. I think everybody's fed up with everything that's happening.
Right.
Um, the big question will be, how do we rein in the spending? How do we get this under control so that, we can really back the currency? It also talks about, what you used to be able to do is if you had a $20 bill and you had a $20 gold piece, that you used to be able to exchange those. You could exchange those for currency. I think people like that. I think people like the idea of being able to exchange something tangible for something paper so that they know that there's something real there. They'll have to equate it to where gold is today, because obviously gold's not at $20 an ounce anymore. It's much higher.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could happen. I think there's, Ron Paul started that sentiment. He wanted to do it. And I think there's a lot of young people now that are pushing for reform. So I wouldn't be surprised. In terms of your second question, price, gold, as we mentioned last time, gold would be at $40,000 or $50,000 an ounce if we went back to gold standard, just because of all the dollars that are out there and how limited the supply of gold is, just in the world. I think that we would see just a huge price increase. It would bring a lot of stability because all the central banks have gold already. It's an easy bartering instrument. So it makes sense. China, India, Brazil, Russia, they all have it already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's foreign. So I think you'd see the price shoot up tremendously, but I also think you'd see a lot of stability in the markets, which I think would be good.
Yeah, it might be volatile for a little bit, but in the long run, be a much better option.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of the price of gold increasing, I saw an article on Zero Hedge just the other day talking about how these trade wars going on, another hot topic, another current event to talk about, these potential trade wars could very well increase the price of gold to $1,400 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on these trade wars?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, listen, I think that tariffs are never a good thing. I don't think increasing the cost of what we pay for goods from China is just going to hurt us in terms of buying things. And also the backlash that we're seeing is that China is not happy with it. And the more that we talk about that, I think it's going to hurt the economy. Ultimately, I understand we want to make our goods that we produce cheaper, and that's a good idea. But I believe in the free hand. I believe that the economy should run, and I think that tariffs are not going to help us. The other thing is that China, you don't want to poke the bear with China, because China holds more of our treasury bonds than any other country in the world. So what if they said, we're going to start calling in these treasury bonds, and you need to start paying these back? They hold a tremendous amount of our debt, and there's no way we could pay that back. They could crush our economy if they basically said, we're calling in all these bonds, or they start selling the bond. If they just started dumping our bonds on the market and saying that they're not worth what they should be worth, our market would be in turmoil. So I'm concerned that this could create a really unstable market if we continue to push them. And I hope that a lot of this chatter just kind of drops down. I don't think it's good for our economy. Let the economy, it's moving. Let the economy move the way it's going to move. The tariffs are, in my opinion, a bad idea.
Right. And do you see precious metals as a potential way to protect oneself for
Absolutely.
what could happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right now the markets, the Dow, the S&P, the Nasdaq are all-time highs or close to all-time highs. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of people that are just taking a portion of their portfolio. They're moving out of those equities, and they're taking a position in metals, and metals are undervalued. I mean, silver right now is 76% lower than where it was 7-8 years ago. It's a bargain. It really is. And silver miners that we talk to say, I don't understand how silver is not even, it should be minimum in the mid-20s, which would be a huge jump from where it is today. So we've had a lot of people take some positions in silver. Silver is also a great bartering instrument. If we ever did go away from the dollar, it's easy because it's a smaller price point for trading and bartering. But yeah, I think silver is a good buy. And it's a good way. So yeah, a lot of people are taking their IRAs, their 401ks. A lot of people have old 401ks they forgot about, and they're moving it into metals. And they're just going to say, you know what, I'm just going to wait and see where things are going to go, where the economies go. And so they're selling high, in equities and hopefully buying low in metals, which is, I think that's what everybody tries to do. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. And as we progress through these kind of turbulent times, we've got these bills being introduced, but then these trade wars. There's just lots of stuff going on. So what can the average person do? Say how much money to put aside to start investing or whatnot. What can the average person do to start protecting themselves right now?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is it's good time. It's tax time. So everybody's sort of looking, they probably looked at their year-end statement from their 401k or their IRA and look at what returns you got last year and look where you're invested in and decide if that's where you want to be going forward. I think the biggest thing that we tell people is that you want to get educated on your options. A lot of people don't even know you can put precious metals in your IRA. It's been allowed since 1987. It is an option. Real estate's an option. There are other options besides equities that are out there. So I would say if you want to call us, we can get you educated on what we do. We have tons of free guides. Any of the representatives, anyone here can answer questions that you have about how to move into a self-directed IRA. But I think ultimately you have to take control of your finances right now. And you don't want to be in a position where, I knew the market was high. I remember 2008, but I just didn't do anything. So I think ultimately, even if you get the information and you decide that it's not for you, at least you took the step and got the education and learned about it. And I think that's the key to finances today. You can't that set it and forget it that people did many years ago. I think that is long gone. I think you got to really keep an eye on your finances.
Yeah, you have to truly be active so we don't get caught up in another 2008.
Exactly.
Totally. And you guys have a free ebook, right?
Yep, we have a free ebook. As I mentioned, it talks about inflation. It's the government lies, inflation. Also talks about our government debt being over $100 trillion. And then we have a silver guide. We have a gold guide. We have a lot of free guides. So if anybody calls in and they mention your name, Destroying the Illusion, and we'll be happy to give them any of the free guides to get them educated, and just they can ask us any questions that they have. And that's really, I think, when people call us, they're surprised that it's so easy. Everyone's friendly, and we're really here to help and educate people.
Well, that's awesome, man. What is that phone number too?
It's 877-646-5347. And our phone lines are open 24 hours. If it's, you see this video in an hour, you call in, you leave a message, someone will call you back next business day and get you out the free guide, or you probably have some links that they can put information in. So yeah, any of those places, we're always available. Noble Gold, we're here to answer questions. So it's our pleasure to do that for anybody that calls in.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you, Colin. I'm going to keep an eye on this bill, see where it goes, and I'm definitely going to get your opinion on it as things start progressing.
Absolutely. Me too. And I think it's very exciting. And if it gets closer to getting passed, I think it's, it'll be interesting to see what the price of metals does, and it'll be interesting to see what the economy does. Are people going to be excited about having a currency? Because, and just to kind of end, currency is supposed to be a store of value. There's a few things that currency's but it's supposed to be fungible, so it's easy to trade, which gold is and the dollar is. It's supposed to, easy to identify. So that's why the dollar has all those identifications, and the coins that we sell have, identifications on them so you can identify. But the ultimate reason for currency is it's supposed to be a store of value. It's not supposed to lose so much value over time. That's why people don't trade with cattle anymore, because you can make a trade and then maybe one of the cows is sick and it loses its value. The dollar is sick. It's not holding its value anymore, and that's why it's not a good monetary exchange, because the person that's receiving it on the end is continuously losing value over time. And hopefully this bill would help us avoid that, and would help regular people that like to save money and do the right thing, that they could put money in an account and save it, and it doesn't drop every 10 or 15 years. It doesn't drop 30-40% in value, which I think is a shame.
Right. And we'll have less people at the age of 70 having to still work to make ends meet.
Exactly. Yep. You're right.
Well, cool, man. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate all the info, all the knowledge.
Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
We'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks.